Welcome to the case 1 for managerial economics, Mr. Baskin. So today we are looking at the demand and supply analysis with regards to bus transportation business between Johor Bahru and Singapore, specifically NUS in Singapore. So let us take a look at the case and the members who are in this case itself. So here are our team members. We have a total of 12 of us from the entire team, and we are grateful for everyone's help. So today we'll be answering 4 questions from the case itself. The first question is specific to the daily demand curve, so we'll be looking at how we derive the short run and long run of all the bus services. The second one is with regards to the pricing strategy. There's actually 2 parts to the question. The first part is what is the short run pricing strategy that we derive based on the case circumstances, and the second one would be would we recommend the same strategy in the long run? Why or why not? The third question will be actually running through fare and travel time elasticity. So basically, why would it differ over the short run and the long run, and why would the travel time differ between the Singaporeans as well as the Malaysians, and what is causing all these different issues? And we'll also be looking at whether the difference in elasticities, such as income elasticity, would it have any implication to the overall strategy for this bus company. And last but not least, based on some of the case facts we have, we'll be looking at a better longer term strategy, because we feel that this current model may not be sustainable as they are currently making losses. So we'll be looking at a longer run strategy. So today the basis for our economic theories has 2 people. First is George Akerlof. He is basically extremely famous for his article The Market for Lemons, Quality Uncertainty and the Market Mechanism. So it deals primarily with asymmetric information, and an interesting thing to note is he's married to former Fed Chair Janet Yellen, who was actually the one with Obama in the financial crisis. The second one is Paul Krugman. Paul Krugman is a very famous economist that I think a lot of us know of, and recently in 2008 he won a Nobel Prize for economics for his work in economic geography. So a quick summary of the case. Our case today is a bus company operating a bus transport system between Johor Bahru and NUS. For next year, they're looking at a loss of 67 plus million, and it seems that there is no other funding sources that the business can actually get in the short term, apart from one thing, which is a one-shot subsidy of 20 million from the Singapore government treasury. But we are not sure if that is sustainable, because it did mention in the case that the Treasury Ministry feels that it's just dumping money into a sinkhole. Apart from that, we have other factors that we can look in the long run to actually restructure the business. So there might be an undervaluation of the business from a few parties. So these parties could be the Singapore government, NUS itself, as well as the students and parents from Singapore and Malaysia. So we'll be looking at how we change all these things in the long run. So the first question we'll be tackling is what are the daily demand curves for this transportation service. So we are looking at the daily demand curve in the short run and the long run. And one of the key assumptions that we have made in this entire case is that the variable costs are trivial, so they do not scale alongside the ridership. So based on this assumption, we have come up with the demand curve. So the case provides us with the total number of riders of 0.8 million, the bus fare, and in the short run, the demand curve is actually Q equals to 1.04 minus 0.16p, and this is based on our calculations of B1 and B0, which is 0.16 and 1.04. For the long run, we are looking at demand curve of Q equals 1.69 minus 0.59p, which is actually derived from the 0.59 and 1.69 B1 and B0 respectively. So what are some of the implications that we can actually look from this daily demand curve? So on the left hand side, you see the curve, the long run and the short run demand curve, and from this we can see that there's a negative elasticity, and the short run demand curve is much more inelastic than the long run. So the long run elasticity, why is it more elastic as compared to short run? Well, basically the transport system, there's a lot of substitutes. If I don't take this NUS bus, I could take public transport, I could potentially take the train and then the bus, I could take a Grab. There are many different ways that the students have to come from different parts of JB and Singapore to NUS. Second is obviously there's no switching cost, there is no like subscription service for this transportation system, etc. And last but not least, a lot of these students are not exactly the most well off. So seeing that it is this case, it would seem that the poorer students, especially those in the rural areas, would be more likely to switch. So they might be willing to travel a longer time, perhaps, if the price goes up too high, because they are unable to afford the transportation costs. And so from this perspective, we actually think it makes more sense for the bus company to prioritize the short run riders, especially since the financial issues that the company faces is pretty immediate, the 67 million shortfall that he starting to see starting next year. So that is why we think for the short run strategy, it's important to prioritize the short run riders, especially since they are more inelastic than the long run riders. And so with that, I'll pass the time to the next person.